Alrighty, y'all. Welcome back to the Complete Husband's Handbook podcast. My name is Daniel, and today, I guess, is a bit more of a reflection episode for me. A lot of our younger friends and family are finding people to marry, they're dating, they're growing in love, and it's all cutesy, and it's the Disney sparkles and spotlights and all that fun stuff. And it kind of reminded me of it's been reminded me of when my wife and I first got married. And there were a ton of books on marriage for women. There's really none for men. There's some for men written by women, but there's really none for men written by men. And so that's kind of the preface of this channel or this podcast. But today we're going to be talking about the stages of marriage. Now, most people know the first stage. It's the honeymoon stage. It's the we stage. It's the first, 3 to 5 years of marriage. Everything's cutesy, lots of pictures. You're joined at the hip. Everything is super awesome. New adventure every day. Any little scuff ups or any little arguments are kind of laughed off, and there's no real issues. And anyone who's been married for any length of time will typically tell you that's a load of crap. I mean, yes, the honeymoon phase, that first year or two, you're adjusting living together, the finances, you have to bring those together. Work, school, any children involved. I mean, it's a huge adjustment. But we tend to push all that aside. And it's kind of that meme of we're sitting there as the dog around the kitchen table and everything's on fire and we're going, everything's okay, everything's okay. We kind of forget that life is happening around us. Now, the honeymoon phase is great. It's the romance, it's the passion, and everything involved in that. And that's great. You need that. It's that quick burn in a fire that really lights it up. But over the next 5 to 10 years, what happens is the adjusting, or the annoying phase is what a lot of people call it. It's what I call the me phase. So we're transitioning from the we to the me. Small annoyances become big issues. Folding the towels wrong. Not doing the laundry right. Not loading the dishwasher right. Not understanding about overtime. Adjusting the schedules. Maybe you've lost a job. Maybe she's lost a job. Just adjustments in life hit you what seems like out of the blue. And then there's the question, how come he or she, depending on who you're married to, how come they can't be like me? And your brain starts to break down, well, there's their way, and then there's my way, which that in of itself is dangerous thinking. If you catch yourself thinking like that, give yourself a mental slap. And then it's more prevalent among women, but men still tend to feel this way. It's the question, why did I get married? Which is what most men will ask. Or women will say, this is not the marriage I've wanted. And a lot of that comes from communication. You're not sharing your hopes and dreams in the beginning. My wife and I guess because we were older, we got married when we were 30, really talked at length about what we wanted. Almost from when we started dating. And so that kind of gave us the realization of what was in store, what we were fighting for, what was needed, what was wanted. And then my wife and I have been married almost 9 years now, which in the long run doesn't seem that long. But compared to a lot of our friends and family, it's long. Now, there are times when, yes, she's driven me batshit crazy, and I've done the same thing to her. But at the end of the day, communication's always open. yes, I've had to walk away from a disagreement because I was really upset. And she's had to do the same. But it's one of those things that in that adjustment period, to really keep in mind that if you're feeling that way, more often than not, your spouse is too, or domestic partner, or whatever you want to call them. For the rest of this podcast, I'll just say spouse, meaning the person you're in a relationship with, so it's just easier. But your spouse is probably feeling that way too. So you really need to sit down with whoever you're with and really have a heart to heart and really see things from their perspective and tell them how you feel. Because if they don't know how you feel, are they really at fault? The answer to that is no. If they don't tell you how they feel, are you really at fault? The answer to that is no. But the quote-unquote original grievance is you're not talking to each other. And that in and of itself is the biggest issue. The number one reason people put for divorce is unreconcilable differences, which is a really fancy way of saying they stop talking to each other. Now, some people can get away with that, and they're fine and dandy, but most of us can't. We're social creatures. And so talking, communicating, connecting, and listening, for the love of God, listen. And this is for men and women. Listen. You may have no interest in what's being said, but the mere fact that you're shutting up and listening to the person means a lot. There are times when I'll talk to my wife and she has no clue what I'm saying or any interest in it. I don't care. The fact that she's listening to me means more to me than she'll ever know. And she'll ask things, or she'll tell me stuff I'm lost about a lot of the stuff she says. But obviously it's important to her, so I should listen to it. And so that kind of brings us into the 10 plus years. And that's the settling in. That's when me becomes us. We've lived some life, and we really begin to see life for what it truly is. If you can reach this point, barring some epic stupidity, you've pretty much got it. Or you know the formula, you just have to keep doing it, I should say. Once you've reached the 10-year mark, you've been through the crucible. You've probably lost a job or two or three. You've had some epic disappointments in your life. I'll be honest, one with my wife and I is infertility. And it's me. I don't really tell that to a whole lot of folks, but I don't know who's listening, and at this point in my life, I don't really care. I'm going to keep it 100. That's caused some issues in our relationship. And it's tough. I'm sure there have been times when my wife has kind of questioned, should she be married to me? And there are times when I've questioned, should I hold her to this, knowing she wants to have kids and she may not be able to because of me. And we've had those discussions, and we've felt each other's pain, and it's rough, to be sure, but it's one of those things where we realize what's happening. Once you've reached that kind of 10-year mark, communication should be clear and honest. It should be. You should know the ticks and the social pulls and kind of what makes your spouse or partner work. If you can see them and know they're having a bad day, you probably shouldn't start nagging on them. Or if they're super excited, give them some time to talk. You may not have a care in the world about what they're saying, but at least you can listen. And then you're choosing to stay together. Marriage is a choice. It is a daily choice. There's an episode of Castle, for those of you who remember Castle, where Castle says, Many people love the institution, but hate the day-to-day. A lot of people love a big wedding and all the photos and look at us and oh, that's so awesome. But the day-to-day choosing to be together, come hell or high water, that's really what makes a marriage work. But you both have to do the choosing, and you both have to be on the same page. If you can get to that point where you're settling in, where you're comfortable, where you're really getting the ball rolling, communication is good, you're seeing life for what it is, y'all have passed through the forges of life, as it were, the real adventure begins. Now, I'm just focusing on the relationship side. I'm not bringing kids into this because I don't have kids and I don't feel like I should speak to that. But for my wife and I mean, especially the past 2 years, because most of my experience has been in logistics, it's been rough. Finding steady work has been a pain. It's really hard. And so she's done a marvelous job, dancing around and really trying to do the finances, while I'm struggling for hours to find work and having a lot of interviews, but no one's hiring. But I'm going to close with this, and this is a really great quote. It's by a guy named Paul Tournier. I hope I'm pronouncing that last name right. And he says, I've been married 6 times, all to the same woman. And he goes on and really speaks more about that, but the fact that marriages change, it's never stagnant. As we grow older, our relationships change. The friends and, stuff you used to do as, in your 20s, you're not going to do in your 30s and 40s. Or if you do, you need to get slapped in the face. But, women change, and we as husbands need to understand that. Those of you who have husbands, your husbands change. The older we get, the more refined we get. So, realizing that, adjusting to that, that'll be a great boon in keeping your relationship alive. So with that, I'm going to close this out, but I really hope that this has helped y'all, and I'll see y'all in the next one.